And, it's been a odd year, changing so much these last 18 months, and definitely changing where I want to take this business the last 3 months. Really feeling that business coaching in general is very outdated and very poorly, I think very poorly delivered in many aspects because of how outdated it is. Because, my feel is that, these late millennials coming through think very differently to myself. And, the culture of self-worth is a different design to what it is for, I'm 52. My design of self-worth is very different to theirs. We relied on our parents to, I'm going to say, foolishly sometimes deliver self-worth to ourselves in a very clumsy way. So we only had one area to pull it from, but the younger generation, and we could say it's even worse, but they gather their self-worth from a digital device, and the amount of kudos and emojis and likes that they get from one sort of post to the next. So they develop in a very synthetic self-worth, but behind that they have amazing interpersonal skills, because they've had to learn emotions from, in a digital sense, the way that I suppose you and I didn't. And also, they teach parents. I mean, I never taught my parents anything, whilst my two daughters have taught me loads in life. So yeah, it's such a different ecosystem now, I think, and accommodating that new business mindset, I don't feel that we actually got the tools in place for that yet. I feel that we are subsequently sort of many thousands of business think hours behind what we need to have in place for that kind of entrepreneurial health and to sustain that coming through. I don't know if I shared this with you. I did a radio interview with my daughter, and I asked her what was the most pressing concern she had for the next 20 years of her life. Bear in mind, she's only 21. And she said, my most pressing concern, Dad, is that my era at some given point in time are going to be country leaders and we're going to be business leaders. And she said, bear in mind that if you were said to me, Dad, you're going on holidays for 2 weeks, she said, I can go with that. If you said to me, you're taking my phone away from 2 weeks, she said, then it's a whole different ball game. It's not because I love you any less, but because I get the same feedback of self-worth from my digital tool as what I do from my mom and dad. I said, that's a bit that scares me, is that synthetic self-worth is at some point going to be a parent. I said, or could be running a country. And she said, I don't know if my era is ready for that yet, because whilst we are teaching you as parents, she said, not actually teaching anything from ourselves, because we've been taught by Apple or Windows. And she said, and the craziest thing is, she said, my developing mind is reliant on the next update on my phone as to tell me whether I'm in control of that or not. And so basically subconscious, Dad, she said, I'm telling myself I'm only as intelligent as my next update. So that's a bit that's scaring me for the next 30 or 40 years moving forward. And I was like, and I actually got emotional and I sobbed after the radio show. I was like, wow, my 20-year-old just said that to me, that was such a profound thing to say. And then from that interview, I pivoted my own business and I realized, man, business coaching is just so far out of date that we are not, we are saturated with logistic and strategic business tools there, David, but they're just tools that deal with the logic of business, not deal with the emotion of business.
Yeah.
And
it's very conveyor belt, isn't it?
Isn't it, eh? Isn't it?
Yeah.
So for me, this last sort of 12 months has been really pivoting into the understanding of lifestyle business rather than successful business, and how we build the right mindset tools for these late millennials coming through to sustain, their self-worth and their belief systems and all that kind of beautiful stuff through that, because it's very different to what I had when I was a kid. For sure. Yeah, interesting times away. What do you think?
Well, I'm just trying to think how to phrase this right. I've never really looked into becoming a coach, as into looking at some of the various schools of coaching and the different methods of coaching. But my observation over the last 15 years of coaching is that it way too often isn't what it says it is, and that it's way too easy to go out into the world as a coach. And then a lot of people are just simply applying cookie cutter nonsense they learned in a 3-month online course. So when you say you think coaching's out of date and I don't know, maybe broken, I agree with you 100%, but possibly for slightly different reasons. But maybe it is actually the same reason. Maybe that is my objection to it. It just doesn't seem to be connected to what's happening on the ground.
You're right. Coaching is broken. It's been broken for many years.
Well, it's funny, isn't it? Because I mean, how long has coaching officially been around? Probably only about 20 or more.
Yeah, I started 18 years ago, and I winged myself in then. So I didn't know enough to coach, but I learned enough.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think 20 years maybe, and it's a very unlicensed, muddy watered area. Yeah. That's the thing.
Yeah. I mean, I'm fascinated by what you said, because I mean, we're of a similar age. I'll be 51 this year. I never thought of that. I mean, you know, obviously I like it when I get lots of likes and emojis, but most of the time I don't really give a shit.
No.
Because yeah, my identity, my sense of self-worth is totally not tied up with that stuff.
That's the thing, isn't it?
I wonder.
You know, we have an immune system that got built in us because we're reliant on human to human self-worth.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, my two young daughters, 21 and 19 now, they clearly say that my immune system is different to yours, Dad. And I can be on a high 1 hour, then on a very low the next hour, because my likes are very different. Even though she says, you know, we sit and have the conversations and I'm very clear this is synthetic. But to you, the synthetic is far further away than what the synthetic is for me in my heart, because of how married we are to Mac and Windows, where you are not. And, you know, we're married emotionally to Mac and Windows, where you were not, Dad. So, you know, when we are generating those likes, then we have to then somehow build an immune system towards that, which is very difficult because we feel different about technology than what you do, you know. And it was such an intriguing interview with her.
I mean, the worst part about all of that is that if that indeed is a broader trend, it is something that is built on the results of a highly cynical algorithmic approach to just picking people's attention bare for money. And the net result of that is a generation whose sense of self-worth is reliant on what the algorithm shows them. Wow, that's horrific. That's horrific.
It's scary. It's scary. And, you know, Danielle, as my eldest daughter, you know, she's studied psychology and all these wonderful things, you know. It's what she's studied in university or college. And so she's got a really good head on her shoulders, you know. And yeah, and she was speaking from, you know, all the people that in her time and these things. When you think about that, you just think, well, we have a responsibility to understand what digital abuse is. And I'm not talking about digital abuse where people are wording, but actually, you know, Apple and Windows, there should be a law where it says, you know, out of a given day, you have to spend this much time digitally free to reset. I mean, we're going to a whole new kind of worms here, but my belief is, as coaches, we have an accountability to disrupt what is now to accommodate what's going to be the next 20, 40 years.
Well, as a creativity expert, what alarms me about social media dependency is that it is a uniform input. So, which is also why I would be careful of taking everything your daughter says too literally, as in being representative of a broader experience.
Mm-hmm.
Because what social media does is it provides you with, you know, I mean, you've heard the term echo chamber.
Yeah.
And it really is a bubble where you don't see or hear from anybody who isn't already interacting with you. You don't see or hear anything about stuff that you don't already know or like. And so it's a very gray and uniform series of inputs. And from a creative thinker's point of view, that's just death. because it means that you're never discovering anything new, which means you never have to join any new dots, which means you never have to stretch your mind and ask yourself, what if, or what can I do next? Or it's all of that thinking is being done for you, and except it's not thinking that's being done for you. It's an analysis of your previous activity, and your future activity is determined by that, which is,
that is
really
just
scary.
mind-blowing.
Yeah. So, this is how people get addicted to conspiracy theories, right? And I followed a guy who did a test where he deliberately went onto YouTube and sought out a particular conspiracy. And then he sought out another one. And then before he knew it, like literally within 5 days, all the YouTube videos that were coming up as his prompts for your next video were all about conspiracies. And within a month, that's all he saw on social media, on YouTube, or anywhere. And he's like, well, of course people get sucked into this stuff, because we make the mistake of thinking because we're seeing so much of it, there is so much of it, without understanding that we're seeing so much of it because the algorithms detected we're interested, and it's ignoring the rest of 99.99% of the world out there and just feeding you the stuff that knows you're going to click on.
Yeah.
And that's what's got to be stopped, actually, that kind of cynical vulture behavior, and setting up algorithms to do that.
It's crazy because it's almost as barbaric, and I'm going to take this a stage further, as we talk about the slaughter of animals and things, but then we are comfortable seeing it wrapped in a supermarket. So, it's almost as if we become conditioned to seeing this, the meat in the supermarket as just meat, not animals. So we're conditioning ourselves and seeing that the information we get is just information, not actually a manipulation.
Right, exactly. Yeah. There's just no awareness of the fact that it is a manipulation, a highly deliberate, expensively targeted one.
It's just crazy, man. I mean, I'm loving this conversation. We're recording this. We may just throw it out on LinkedIn and let people go crazy over it, It really is, because when we think about it, it's like, so, what should this generation, our generation, what should we be doing in order to protect what is, the business health, the entrepreneurial health, and even the life health of the minds of our beautiful, grown-up children now, coming through. And when I look again at my 19 and 21-year-old daughter, and I think, okay, so, what's it going to be like for them in 10 years time, 15, 20 years time?
It's critical they get access to a broader diversity of inputs. Mm-hmm. Because it's not just social media that does this. Google does this as well. So depending on what your search results are filtered according to what you've searched for before, and according to where you are. And so if you search for something, say, let's be ridiculous for a second, Church of Satan, you'll get results that are in Wales, and I will get results that are in the Netherlands, mm-hmm. And in fact, near my city. But once you've searched for the Church of Satan, the next time you try and figure out what was that weird breed of goat you saw at the neighbor's farm, it's going to start sending you stuff about satanic involvement with goats.
Wow.
Right? So it means you actually are compelled to read books, to actually speak to people, to get offline, because all the devices we use to find information are manipulating us in order to sell stuff.
Yeah. Well, it's like as if it's creating our own subconscious. Let's say it's like it's building our own. It's stopping us from actually free thinking.
Yes.
It's stopping let's say that, we breathe manually every day, but let's say we spiritually breathe and all, and that's a different oxygen. And that oxygen where we spiritually breathe is actually being manipulated. So we have to spiritually and manually think in a different way, because we've been forced to think this way. This is where we are. I know it's a little deep, but, effectively, it is causing an effect on not just our nervous system, but also our subconscious nervous system, if that's such a place, because it's changing the organic structure of who we are as mind thinking people.
Yeah. So you got to remember that as a human being, we literally see and hear everything that is happening in our environment, but we only consciously register a tiny window of that because we're not able to parse that much information at a time. But yes, all that information is hitting us. It's all going in. So if there's a spiritual unconscious, it's that. And
Yes.
so when that, at least, when you're online in any way, shape or form, everything that's hitting you has got nothing to do with what you want.
Wow. That's just, and then of course, I suppose it creates a self-convincement of I must want it because it's being put there in front of me.
Well, also, you are convincing yourself that these are the only answers. Because I'm on Google. I mean, I'm searching the World Wide Web. It's the information superhighway. If this is what it's telling me, this must be the truth. And it's not. It's a filtered version of the truth based on what you already believe, as evidenced by what you've searched for before.
So do you think then, David, that the web, the World Wide Web has actually become more influential than what our parents were going back? Our parents were very influential 40 years ago. When I was 10-year-old, my parents they were my heroes. Good or bad, they were the only people that I knew for information. And I had to go there and rely on the download of whatever come out of my mother and father's mouth as being the World Wide Web, right. Effectively. Well, now we're saying there's a different parent. The World Wide Web has become the mom and the dad and the teacher and the brother and the sister, the boyfriend, girlfriend, husband and wife.
Well, I'm more comfortable with it when you say that. I mean, I think, my World Wide Web was the local library. My parents were particularly hands-off. So, but yeah, I think that it's, oh, wow, that's interesting. Yeah, it's become Walmart. It's a one-stop shop.
Yeah.
And all one-stop shops have limits in terms of diversity because it's, physically shops are limited by diversity by their physical size. The internet is limited in its diversity by the algorithms.
Mm-hmm. So the World Wide Web doesn't have the freedom to use the subconscious the way that we do. But here's the thing is that I don't remember the last time, sadly, my daughters come and asked me a question that related to anything worldly, in the sense of they would just go on their phone and they'll find it. And then they will contradict to me that, no, Dad, this is what it says on Google, so you must be incorrect.
Right.
That's what I'm getting. Now, that's the power of where we can say again, the World Wide Web has become the mom and the dad, more influential than the organic mom and dad.
Yeah. The trouble is, of course, no one's fact-checking what you're finding on Google. I mean, just because you found some maniac's blog who claims that 1 + 1 = 5 doesn't mean to say it's true, even though you found it on Google.
So my question is, where do you think we go from here?
Well, have you heard of DuckDuckGo?
No.
So DuckDuckGo is a browser which you can download, and it's a search engine. And DuckDuckGo, unlike Google, does not record every move you make.
Mm-hmm.
So when you put a search into DuckDuckGo, it gives you all the possible results from all over the world to your search query, not a result that is filtered through your previous search history.
Wow.
And so basically we need DuckDuckGos in our heads. But aside from that, I think, and my kids are really young. I mean, my daughter's nearly 4, my son's 1.5. But I'm very much going to spend a lot of time making them aware of the fact that what they find on the internet isn't necessarily true, and that it's being forced at them by people with a hidden agenda. Mm-hmm. Because I don't see that there's any other way to break through this. The naive, almost hippie-esque optimism of the early days of the internet have established a myth about what the internet is that bears no resemblance to the reality of what it has become. And that's hugely problematic.
Truly. I think that, we will end up a very dumb-minded race of people if we don't take charge this manipulation. Although, you know, let's not be naive. I think, you know, the web has a very positive impact also, but it has to have a purpose for that positive impact, where it, of course, there's all the control behind it now, as we say there. But yeah, I really enjoy this, you know, and I'm going to say that, you know, I didn't expect it to go this way, but I've recorded this, and I genuinely would record it. Are you okay if I just blast this out? It's such a great conversation.
Yeah, go for it. I mean, I don't know what people are going to make of it.
I mean, who cares, eh? But, you know, let's just, you know, what we got on a call to share a coffee Zoom today because we met on a networking event, and I really am excited about what you do. And then we had a brief chat and thought we'd get on a coffee call and see what happens. And this is where it kind of ended up. Yeah, it's been amazing. And you know, I'm gonna end the recording now anyway, so we can just do some chinwag after. But that's great. I'm just gonna finish this here and say this was just so unexpected.